I finally have a quick moment without kids to finally strain my Echinacea. I grew these cone flowers out in my garden. I really love Echinacea because it's just a very beautiful perennial. I particularly don't like gardening, ironically. So anytime I can plant and use a perennial rather than an annual, I will do it. So I love these. They're great for boosting your immune system. You can make tea out of them. It doesn't taste that great, so usually if I do make a tea out of them, I will mix mint in with it to kind of mask the flavor. But what I tend to do, and it's interesting because I used to buy my own at the health food store, but now I just make my own tincture from it. And there's two ways you can do it, but it's so easy. You just take the flowers, ideally ones that you grew yourself, and you fill the jar with, they don't even need to be dry. Well, I think they need to be dried. I dry mine. So you dry them, I dehydrate mine, or you can just leave them out to dry. You fill the jar with that, and then you can either fill it with like a liquor, preferably one that you like the flavor of, or if you're like me and you don't like the flavor of liquor, you can use vegetable glycerin. And it's funny because my kids will always be like, which Echinacea is it that you're giving us? The sweet Echinacea or the gross one? I'm like, oh, it's the sweet Echinacea, don't worry. So I've switched to using vegetable glycerin because it's much more palatable. And so you can see here, we're almost getting down like halfway. So I'm going to strain this one into this one. And I just use a little strainer. My thing is homesteading or growing your own food or gardening. It should not be that difficult. It tends to be. And it's really hard when you have kids and you can't seem to have a free hand to do anything. But anything that I can find that this isn't even in the frame, so you can't even see what I'm doing. Anything that I can find that will make it easier for me to do it, I will do it that way. So in this case, I can very easily harvest my Echinacea. And if you've ever seen my food forest right outside my door, you'll see that there's lots of Echinacea flowers out there, so I don't have to go too far to get them. And I just pluck them off, bring them in, dry them, and then eventually put them in a mason jar, cover them with the vegetable glycerin, let it sit. This has been sitting for a really long time. I think it's only 30 days that you need to do it for, but this has been sitting for way more than that because I just didn't get to it. But no worries, because it just means that it has a lot of the good benefits from the Echinacea in it. And you can see these flowers used to be purple because the Echinacea I use, that is the medicinal one, is Echinacea purpurea. And the color is all gone from it because it was taken out by the process of turning this into a tincture. So we're just gonna keep pouring this out. It's actually getting, I still have some room, but it's getting quite full. So I will usually take this in the cold and flu season, and it'll give me that extra boost that I need to protect my body from getting sick. But yes, a common theme with me is I do not simply have the time to do things that are very time consuming. So, and I hate weeding and I don't like planting that much. So anything I can do to save on time and energy, I will do it. Back in the day on homesteads, you used to have multi-generations together. We just don't have that. It seems like you have to be rich to be a farmer these days. It seems like you have to have tons of time and energy, but there's definitely ways around it. And if I can find those ways, then I will. looks like I might almost run out of room on this. We're getting pretty close to the end here. There's just a little bit left. So it's funny, when I was growing up, my mom loves flowers, and she would only really grow flowers. Even though I grew up on a farm, it was all about the flowers and not the vegetables, which is kind of funny. And I hated it. I hated how I had to go weed with her. But then when I got married to Brandon, we started gardening together and growing some food. We just experimented, and it had more of a purpose for me other than looking pretty. Now, granted, I love flowers because they look beautiful, but having something I can use and eat was very enticing to me, and it gave me more reason to weed the garden. So with the flowers that are perennials, I don't have to plant it anymore. I just plant it once, that I can harvest very easily and take my time, set it out for a couple days, put it in a jar, let it sit after I pour the stuff over it, then strain it. Just little bits of time. It doesn't take that long. It's not that time consuming. It's not that hard. Canning is hard, I will say that. Canning, but this isn't canning. Yeah, it's a lot more motivational to grow something that has a purpose. And that's why I'm not really big on landscaping and ornamental stuff, because although beautiful, it doesn't have a purpose. And it's not natural in a lot of cases too. I feel like things are bred not to do what they were meant to do. Oh, it's like very close. I've got like a little bit of drops here, and that's about it. There's not much room, but this is good because then I can kind of clear this off of my counter where it's been sitting for a while. I set this somewhere sunny in the light, and that is where it does its work. Luckily, I have some pretty good window space in the sun in our house, and I can use that to do my tinctures, and it works out well. One that I'm working on that I haven't even finished, I don't think I got enough flowers to really make it worth it, is calendula. Those are really pretty. I planted them last year and got some flowers off. Just kept plucking them as I walked by when I was going out to whatever. And, you know, you just keep them in the mason jar once they're dry, but I haven't had enough to make a tincture. But that's one of my goals, is to have a tincture from the calendula that I can use for different balms and stuff. All right, I think that's as much as I'm gonna get out of that. All right, so if you want to see, it's pretty full there. So I've got some sticky vegetable glycerin all over my, which lid was which. So Echinacea, I just write it on the lid. I do have a label maker. I probably should be using that, but a Sharpie works too. So I put this into my supplement and medicine cabinet, and then I just take like a spoonful whenever I need to, and that's pretty much it. Now I don't have to buy it at the store, and I know where it came from. I know it's not sprayed with anything because it's from my backyard, and it's very easy. So if you think it's too overwhelming, think again, because I am the queen of thinking things are overwhelming, and this is not. Thanks for joining.